You've heard the argument before. If everybody buys these electric vehicles and plugs them all in, the grid is just going to collapse. Right now, there's over 8.2 million electric vehicles in the United States. And even though the adoption rate has slipped from about 10% last year to about 6 or 7% right now, following the removal of the subsidy, there are more EVs getting added to the grid every single day. What are we going to do? It sounds so scary. It makes intuitive sense that the grid would collapse. But here's the thing, it's almost entirely wrong. Welcome back. This is a channel about the electrification technologies that are shaping our future. There's a lot of concern out there about millions of electric vehicles getting plugged in. And if these were all dumb chargers, yes, that would be a problem. But they're not. These are smart chargers, smart electric vehicles, and what's coming around as the smart grid that work together to make all of these batteries in residential neighborhoods and commercial fleets available to the grid whenever the grid needs power. Some of the ways they do that are fairly simple once they're explained. You can schedule your charging so the car doesn't start right away. Maybe you want to charge when there's less power, or excuse me, there's less cost for the energy. You want to charge when it's cheapest. You want to maybe shave the peak off some of those times. If you have more than one electric vehicle at a location, no matter how many are plugged in, you might not want it to go over a certain power level, while still giving each individual charger enough power, full power even perhaps, to get the car charged by morning, which is what most EV owners expect. And they leave in the morning, that they leave with a fully charged battery every day, every morning. Third aspect of this is what's called frequency response. Our grid operates at 60 cycles per second. It's alternating current, AC, coming into our homes. And it must remain very, very close to that 60 hertz frequency to avoid blackouts, brownouts, damage to the electrical infrastructure that we've all invested in so heavily. The last part, perhaps the most interesting, both from a financial perspective and just from technology perspective, is what is called vehicle to grid, where vehicles power homes. Vehicles can even send their power beyond the home back to the grid itself, so that whenever the grid needs power, it can get power. Whenever it has power, it can deliver power. We have plenty of electrical power on the grid. It's just a matter of where and when we deploy that power. You can think of the grid like a big water tank. If everybody's taking a shower at exactly 5 o'clock, that water pressure may drop. There may be issues. During those peak demand events, it'd be really nice if, from an electric vehicle perspective, that we could move energy to and from the grid. EVs are unique like that, where they don't need energy every second, every minute they're plugged in. Most electric vehicles are fully charged by the morning. Many of them are almost fully charged when they plug in at night, because people don't really drive that far. But just for the sake of argument, understand that there's lots of electric vehicles sitting plugged in a great majority of their time at idle, with a lot of battery power built up inside of them right now, with nowhere to send that power if needed or at the right price. Chargers aren't just, like your iPhone charger. They're smart. There's communication protocols that can talk back and forth to the grid to maintain the health of the grid. Charging during valleys of energy consumption and waiting during high demand, and in the future, like we'll get to, distributing power back to the grid whenever everybody's come home from dinner, let's say, turning on making food, or in the morning when industry's ramping up. Whenever the time is that there's peak demand, electric vehicles in what is called virtual power plants will consolidate all of the millions of electric vehicles together and contribute power back to the grid. Imagine it's the hottest day of the year. It's 4 o'clock. Everybody's come home. On their way home, AC's cranking at everybody's house. The grid operators are sweating too. They're minutes away from reaching maximum capacity, and they need people to stop using power immediately. In the old days, you might have had a television announcement, radio announcement. Please turn your lights off. Please help conserve power. Today, they send signals directly to smart connected assets to maybe not turn off, but maybe turn down 9 kilowatts down to 2 kilowatts for an hour. Or maybe if it's a scheduled charging, it just pauses chargers. It can digitally respond when the grid needs it to reduce power so that we're using the power that we have for the things that have to be charged at that moment. We cannot live without electric or air conditioning, cannot live without refrigeration, the things that are time critical that could create losses if the power is not there. Electric vehicles, plug them in. You just needed to be ready by, let's say, 6 o'clock in the morning when you leave for work. That's all you care about. You want to charge for the least amount of money that you have to spend while the vehicle is ready when you want it to be ready. It's basically peak shaving. The utility can set a cap so that everybody gets the power that they need without the grid becoming overwhelmed. Now, let's get a little bit more advanced. Peak shaving is one thing. Peak shifting, move it to later at night. Everybody's asleep. Let all the electric cars charge. Nobody else is using really much power compared to during the day. Easy enough, right? Let's take it a step further. Like I said, the grid operates at 60 hertz and not 59.1 hertz, not 62 hertz, 60 hertz. The transformers, substations, switchgear, the things that make our digital life possible rely on a 60 hertz alternating current frequency on the grid. Now, when there's too much power on the grid, the frequency goes up. When there's too much demand of the grid, that frequency will drop. These are small drops. Utility operators are now able to send digital signals to high consuming power devices, let's call them power electronics, to say, please provide little tiny bits of power back to the grid, little nudges back up to 60 hertz, maintaining that balance, keeping the grid healthy, keeping infrastructure without the need for repair, as much maintenance, making everything work smoothly. These are what we would think of 5-10 years ago as gigantic batteries, 100 kilowatt, 50 kilowatt, very big batteries sitting in people's driveways. Very small responses from these devices just to support the grid are very valuable to grid operators. No more switching out transformers, no more blowing up substations, no more brownouts. Use the assets, the battery energy assets that are out there, residential neighborhoods and commercial fleets, to support the frequency of the grid. Again, these are very small changes in power. The owners of these vehicles may barely even notice that there's a milliseconds of change increasing or decreasing the power flowing through their charger to the electric vehicle. But to the grid, it's essential. But taken collectively, and again, what's called a virtual power plant, there's probably over 3 terawatt hours of electric vehicle energy sitting in North America and the United States already. Compare that, there's a lot of stationary storage. These are battery packs that don't move. They're installed on the ground, called utility scale batteries that are 600 and let's say 0.6 terawatts versus over 3 terawatts of electric vehicle battery power out there. So as utility scale grows, and it's growing faster than ever, fantastic revolution in clean energy for utility grade batteries. It is still not going to it's going to pale in comparison to the individual buyers of electric vehicles. I have 2 electric vehicles myself. I've got 200 kilowatt hours sitting in my driveway that I'm happy to support the grid for a price, or let's say for less cost on my energy bill, to keep the grid healthy and participate in what are called grid service markets. Now, to this point, we've spoken primarily about how much power your EV receives. But the holy grail here, what we're getting closer and closer to, is the opposite. Vehicle to grid. Your EV is no longer a consumer of energy, it's a provider. Think about this. Tesla Powerwall has become very popular. Generac diesel generators for your home, very popular. Many other non-Tesla home batteries becoming very popular. Those typically, if they're batteries, are no more than 14 kilowatt hours of energy. 14 is the only number you need to go. Like I said, I have 200 kilowatt hours sitting in the 2 cars in my driveway between them. That's enough energy to power my home for days and days if I needed it to. My vehicles will provide the energy in their batteries for the couple of hours when Duke Energy here in the Carolinas has a blackout. We have had some transformers pop, a lot of maintenance on the grid, and our refrigerator, our daily life is unaffected because the vehicles provide power to my home if and when the power does go out. It goes out every couple months for 10, 20 minutes, maybe 2 hours, maybe a day at the most. But I have electric vehicles. Why not use them to power my house? Now we take that a step further, and what's called a bidirectional charger, as a charger that power can go in or out of the vehicle. I can move beyond that. Even if there is power on the grid and the operator, the utility needs energy, I can send in the future power back beyond my home, beyond the meter, to the grid for a price. Let's say, just to give you some examples of the real motivation behind these changes, I can pay 12 cents a kilowatt hour for certain times of the day. Sometimes 6 to 9, I believe it's 26 or 28 cents a kilowatt hour here at my house. At night, from 1 a.m. to 6 a.m., it's only 7 cents a kilowatt hour. But during those times, let's say from 6 to 9, when power is very expensive and my car is plugged in, I wouldn't be charging my car anyway because it costs me money. It costs me the most money to charge between 6 and 9. If I sign up for the programs that are becoming available in Texas and California, and will soon be across all 50 states from your utility, they could pay me as much as $2 per kilowatt hour to get the power out of my vehicle for an hour or two, let's say, or for a half an hour, for the kilowatt hours that they need from my cars. They don't have to build new power stations. They can just borrow the energy from all those electric vehicles in the neighborhoods, send it back to the grid, and avoid all of that capital expense for those new facilities. What a deal. What a deal. I get paid and they avoid huge cost. And this I would call arbitrage of power coming back to my car, after 9 o'clock, when all the power needs for the general population goes back down. The power will reverse from me going to the grid and getting paid to actually, in my car's sake, it'll still wait. As long as the grid's not offering to pay me for power, it'll still wait from 1 to 6 to recharge during that time when I think it was 7 cents per kilowatt hour. So I could be making $2 per kilowatt hour after I got home from work, plugged in, and the car was just sitting there anyway. I've got 70-80% charge on my car because I don't drive that far, even though I do commute to work, versus it refilling itself in the middle of the night while I'm dreaming for 7 cents a kilowatt hour. Turns every EV owner into a small scale energy trader. Some of you are used to this, where you're getting your $50 HVAC Nest smart thermostat payments. This is just that on steroids, because you've got an energy provider to the grid. You buy energy at night for pennies, and you sell a tiny fraction of it back during emergency peaks for dollars. This is the basic fundamental motivation behind the technology that's going to support the grid and enable electric vehicle batteries to be a huge asset to the grid. Now, we've covered a lot. Essentially, what we're going at is this unfounded belief that all these electric vehicles are going to be a problem. All these electric vehicle batteries are a huge asset to the grid. We shaved the peak, software-defined limits to the total power that an electric vehicle charger can take. There's rules to the game. You can't just be a dumb charger and charge whenever you want. You will get your full charge by the end of the night, but it's about the grid having the first say, moving that required energy from when it's hard for the grid to when there's a huge amount of power. About the batteries giving back small little increments of energy so that the grid can maintain the frequency of 60 hertz precisely where it needs to be so that everybody's lights stay on as much as humanly possible. And the last one about vehicle to grid, when cars will completely turn their energy back around and provide energy to the grid, as much energy as the grid needs for when it needs it to maintain stability. The future isn't about the grid desperately trying to cope with electric vehicles. The future is about enabling the grid to become smarter and cleaner and more resilient than ever before. We just got to plug them in. When wireless charging comes around, which we will discuss in a later episode, it'll just be park where you park over the charger. And that's it. You just get out of the car, go in and have dinner with your family. So what are your thoughts? Ask them down below. Does this make sense to you? Does your utility offer managed charging incentives? Have you ever thought about vehicle to grid as a home backup? Let me know in the comments below. We read every one of them. If this video helped demystify this topic, hit the like button. It really helps the channel. Subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive into technology tomorrow. And I will see you then.